new Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask 3DS remake is coming out in just 3 days' time, which means the world of Termina I grew up with is soon going to be gone forever. Or, well, not really at all, but the point is...
In light of this new release, I wanted to contribute a 3-part theory I have about this game. It is based on an existing theory, but I haven't seen it reach the same conclusions I have, so I'm pretty confident it's mostly new, and it explains how the Happy Mask Salesman, as well as the origins of Majora's Mask and the Fierce Deity are all tied together. The first part is probably the hardest to swallow, and has definitely been considered by others. The Happy Mask Salesman is a god. Spoilers ahead, but if you've never played this game, I will still attempt to make this accessible. One of the best things about this game is the way it tells its stories. There isn't necessarily a linear progression between plot points, and if you don't get crazy about completing it, you may miss some stories entirely. The best example is probably the connection between the Deku Mask and the Deku Butler. You're only given 3 clues. In the opening sequence, Tattle points out a stump she says looks like you. In the quest for the Mask of Sense, the Deku Butler mentions you remind him of his son. And finally, during the end credits, you see the Deku Butler crying in front of that stump from the very beginning of the game. It's an amazing way to tell a story and unlike anything in a book or a movie. This game rewards you for making intuitive leaps and coming up with theories, so long as you pay enough attention. So, I'm going to use the same type of logic in the theory I'm laying out here. The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask is very different from other Zelda games. There's almost no Zelda, no Hyrule, and your mission is not to save the world. You do end up saving the world of Termina, but your actual mission is to get this guy his weird mask back. I've always liked that about this game. Saving the world is just incidental to an errand you're running for someone else as a thank you. The game begins with the hero searching through a forest for an old friend. Most people, including Hyrule Historia, identify that friend as Navi, his fairy companion from Ocarina of Time. During that journey, the hero gets mugged by a couple of fairies and the Skull Kid. They manage to take his ocarina and his horse. The hero gets back on his feet and chases after them. He falls into a pit, and the Skull Kid transforms him into a Deku Scrub. The Skull Kid taunts him and then floats down a hallway. The hero is left alone with one of the fairies, but he agrees to let her tag along, wherever he goes, because, well, he's gotta be a nice guy. They follow the path ahead of them through a twisting hallway into the belly of some strange mechanical structure. At the top of the stairs, they meet the Happy Mask Salesman. He has also been robbed in the woods and has followed the hero for some time. He offers to restore the hero to his former self in exchange for the hero's promise to get him his mask back in 3 days' time, before he leaves this place. The hero agrees, and that's what sets him off on his journey. He will go through the same 3 days over and over again until he can get that mask back. Even after he gets his ocarina back and his horse, at which point one supposes he could resume his quest to find Navi, he opts to keep going through the cycle until that mask is returned to its proper owner. That theme gets repeated throughout the game as the hero goes on errand after errand as favors to people, always running against the clock. The game even has the Bomber's Notebook as a collectible, which allows you to keep track of 20 different sets of errands to run. It's like your ultimate weapon in this game is scheduling. The hero must go about accomplishing this task to get the mask back in a land that is strange to him, yet full of familiar faces. Most of the citizens of Termina are just recycled models from the citizens of Hyrule in Ocarina of Time. There are a lot of theories about what exactly Termina is. Some say it's just a far-off land, some say it's another planet with a different moon. One of my favorites suggests that it's all a play being put on by the residents of Hyrule. And of course the most interesting theory is that Termina is a purgatory, which the hero exists in after the fall from the opening sequence killed him. Regardless of which you believe, Termina is certainly not the same as Hyrule. In fact, it doesn't even have the same gods. In the Ocarina of Time and many of the other 3D Zelda titles, people tend to worship 3 goddesses as the creators of the world: Din, Nehru, and Faror. But they are not mentioned even once in Majora's Mask, nor is the Triforce they created. Over the course of the game, Tattle identifies the giants the hero was trying to gather from the 4 compass points as protective gods. It seems as though just as the hero was transformed by the Skull Kid, these gods were also transformed into monsters, the ones that the player fights in the temples. If we assume that the opening sequence of the game takes place in Hyrule, then Tattle is from Hyrule, like the hero. That would explain why the giants are mysterious to her, but are well known to the people of Termina. Andrew's grandmother tells bedtime stories about them after all. But there's another god in Termina, the goddess of time. She's never been mentioned in any other Zelda game, but there are certainly temples built to something of time in Hyrule, and the first references to the goddess of time come from Zelda and Tattle, who are both from Hyrule. So I think the Song of Time is a prayer to her in both worlds. Though, instead of opening a door and moving blocks around, as that song did in Hyrule, in Termina it sends the hero back in time to just after his first encounter with the mask salesman. So there must be more than 4 gods in Termina, and certain gods may be present in both Termina and Hyrule, though they may have wildly different power sets in each world. What my theory suggests is that there are not 5, but 6 gods present in Termina, and the 6th is the Happy Mask Salesman. If each song is a prayer, then the Song of Time is clearly a prayer to the Goddess of Time. The Sonata of Awakening brings forth the temple to the giant god who presides over the Deku tribe. The Goron Lullaby opens the path to that tribe's protective deity, and the same can be said for the New Wave Bossa Nova and the Zoras. The Elegy of Emptiness, which you learn from the Ghosts of Ikana, does the same, though through a very different mechanic. And the Oath to Order serves as a prayer to all the gods. That said, there are some songs in this world which seem to be secular. The ones played by the Zora Band, or the one in the Milk Bar, Ipana's song, or even the Song of Soaring and the Song of Storms don't seem to be connected to the gods. So a song alone is not enough to identify a god. Another special feature of the gods in this game is that they seem to be unstuck in time. Once you have freed them by defeating the monstrous forms they have been trapped in, the giants will answer your call from atop the clock tower, even if you did not free them in that particular cycle. The only other exceptions to this seem to be the Bank Lady, as well as Mikau and Darmani, who stay at peace after you heal their souls just once. There are 2 features of the gods that don't seem to have exceptions. Gods are driving forces in this world. According to Anju's grandmother, the gods going to sleep was what split one world into 4. Time is certainly present throughout the world, as you constantly fight against the clock, and there is also a connection between the gods and the boss fights. So, to say that the Happy Mask Salesman is a god, I have to prove that he is associated with a song, is associated with a boss fight, is unstuck in time, and is a driving force in this world. The Happy Mask Salesman is clearly associated with one of the most powerful songs in the game, the Song of Healing. This is the song the Happy Mask Salesman teaches the hero to remove the curse that turned him into a Deku Scrub. This song is the song which creates the 3 main transformation masks which are essential to the game. It also creates a mask that lets you speak to the dead, and one that gives you sick dance moves. That's a lot of power, but the song alone is not enough. It may be a bit of a stretch to call your first encounter with the Skull Kid atop the clock tower a boss fight, considering you hit him with one bubble and then play a song at him, but it does almost immediately precede an encounter with the Mask Salesman, in which he is free to give you a great deal more information than he was before. And, as a god in Termina, the Happy Mask Salesman is unstuck in time like none other. He acts as if the hero has been gone for days after he gets his ocarina back from the Skull Kid, but from the Mask Salesman's perspective, the hero should have only just gone out the door, thanks to the time travel. The Mask Salesman also disappears into thin air at the end of the game after getting Majora's Mask back, and the only way to stop the clock and still move around in the game is to be on the moon, or with the Happy Mask Salesman in the clock tower. He's the only thing that stops time. And even more tellingly, if you allow the moon to fall, it's the Mask Salesman who brings you back, reminding you that you've suffered a terrible fate. He is the one who sets you on your quest and thereby saves the world. He is a driving force, a god, and he is incredibly powerful. This theory is nothing new, and it may sound like a bit of a stretch, but bear with me because I think it serves as a foundation for a much more important conclusion. Many people suggest that the Mask Salesman knows about the Ancient Tribe because he is a member of the Ancient Tribe. They point out his similarity to the Moon Children, and the fact that the Moon Children make references to being Mask Salesmen as well. But, if the Mask Salesman is a god, I think we can say that the Moon Children are also avatars of the gods. After all, they do wear the masks associated with the monstrous forms of the giants. But if the 5 Moon Children are avatars of the gods, then who is the Majora child an avatar of? And who is really behind the Fierce Deity mask? To answer that, we'll have to figure out who really made Majora's Mask. Tune in next time.